you're anything like me, you didn't buy brand new woodworking tools right off the bat, especially one that's as expensive as a joiner. And when you buy used tools, sometimes they're not perfect. And that was the case with this guy. And I pulled out what was left of my hair trying to get it perfect. So I'm hoping to put together a video that'll make a little bit more sense instead of jumping around with looking at a bunch of different videos like I had to. Let's see if I do any better. So a couple of tools I used, a couple of wrenches, some Allen keys, a machinist square, super important, some feeler gauges. It'd really help you out get it perfect. And then I used a 48-inch level. And idealistically, you're going to want a straight edge because they're machined a lot better than something like this. Here's a little trick. What I did is, you may look weird, but when you go to your box store, all you do is take the level and go over to the granite countertops in the kitchen section and lay it down. And when you lay it down, you can stick under a couple feeler gauges to make sure that it's level throughout the whole thing. They may think you're weird walking around with one of those, but hey, you get one that's actually really nice. And this one turned out to be perfect. So, a little tip for you, save some money. Step number 1, make sure you unplug it. Never work on a joiner when it's plugged in. You can lose a finger. Step number 2, remove the safety device that keeps you from losing your finger. Don't touch it. Very sharp. Next, I'm going to remove the fence because all that does is get in the way. And it's super easy to take off. Just one screw holds this guy in. The only downside is it is extremely heavy. I'm going to warn you right now, this next part is extremely tedious and probably the hardest part of adjusting your joiner. And we need to make the in-feed table and the out-feed table coplanar. And what that means, it needs to be exactly the same on both sides. No twists, no bows or dips, anything like that. It's got to be perfect. And because of how these are, you adjust one side, and now this side's not right. And you adjust that side, and that's not right. So there's a lot of back and forth. So just be ready, relax, grab a drink. You're going to be here a while. It took me 8 hours the first time I did my joiner. And it's already out of shape. So keep that in mind, and I think you'll have fun with it. Maybe. So big tip for you. I just want to make all my adjustments to my out-feed table. And here's my reason why. The in-feed table is the only one you're going to move up and down if you want to cut different depths and all that. So that one you don't really want to make a bunch of adjustments and shims, because if that one gets out of line because it moves so much, there's just more chances you're going to have to adjust more in the future. As opposed to your out-feed, you're going to set it, it's going to be dialed in exactly where you want it, and you're not going to touch it. Unless over time, it can dip and all that, yeah, but otherwise, you're going to leave it alone. So we're going to concentrate on our out-feed table. Now I'm going to remove the base that holds my fence on, because that just gets in the way when we're trying to make our adjustments to the table. And just like the fence, it's extremely heavy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clamp this down to my out-feed table, and then just take some measurements. So it should be nice and perfect, where there's just no gap on both sides. And you're not supposed. Oh no. And that's what I mean by not coplanar. Now before you go shimming crazy, there's a little tip to this. You can actually tighten these bolts over here. They're called gibs. Those are the gibs on a joiner. I never knew what they were. They could be jibs. It's G-I-B-S. I heard some call them gibs, so I'm going to go with gibs. You can tighten or loosen those, and that's actually going to change the angles of your in-feed and out-feed table. But you only need to do very small increments, and it's going to do a lot. One side's going to make it go one more way or the other way, so I like to adjust those to get it so at least that bow is gone. It'll be even from tip to tip. And then from there, we could start to looking at shimming something. Getting ready to make adjustments to my out-feed table. I'm going to see where the gap is and start to make my adjustments. I'm undoing some things over here so you're able to make adjustments to your gibs. There's a nut that holds that stud super tight, so you have to loosen that up before you can make any adjustments. Double checking my feeler gauges. And this is what I'm talking about here, where you'll have to tighten one side a little bit, maybe even loosen the other side, going back and forth to see that gap until you get it just right. Looking to make sure there's no more air gap underneath your level, and keep checking it with your gauges. Once you're happy, all right. Make sure the other side is the same. Because it's not good if only one side is nice. The other one's got to match up too. Otherwise, you're still in the same boat. I'm lucky enough to where mine's good. But if it's not the end of the world. I'll show you what you got to do. Once I'm done tightening my jib-giblips, you want to make sure that this doesn't move. Okay? Keep it very still. For both of them. And this one's a little trickier because it doesn't like us. Okay, so now you did that, but what if your table's kind of sideways, like this, or like that, and you can't get it perfect? Well, that's when shimming comes into play. You could put shims underneath here throughout the whole length, so you can really modify it. Now I know what you're thinking. Where are we going to get shims? Where should I buy shims? Well, if you drink sodas at all, or anything in a can, you don't need to. You just cut those up into little strips, and they act as perfect little shims. They can just wedge right in there. Now you don't always even just shim it here to maybe get it to come up a little bit. Sometimes you got to shim it here, or over here, or back there. Not up here, but anywhere along here. Now this is where you're going to hate me. If you do have to shim it, you got to start all over. Because you have to loosen all the jibs, jibs. Shim it. And then readjust your tension on them. And do it all over again. Until it's perfect. When it's perfect, you'd be so happy. You'd be so pumped. Next, we're going to have to adjust the height of these blades. First, you're going to loosen up these guys here inside this jet joiner. And then there's actually a little Allen head inside here that you can adjust. That'll make the blade go up and down until you can get it nice and perfect. Now I'm going to lower my infeed table. I like to do about a 1/16 of an inch. There really isn't a right or wrong, but I wouldn't take off giant chunks. There's no need for that. Just at a 1/16. Oh yeah. Perfect. Lock that guy in place. Now I'm going to adjust my blades. Now I'm going to go through and I'm going to use a feeler gauge again. Get right in there until it's just snug. And I use something super thin, and then you go through the whole length of the blade. You have to make little adjustments, but this is all something you want really perfect. So, you know, contact, and then you go through every blade on it. By this time, after spending hours going back and forth to make sure your table is just right, or at least right enough for you, we can start putting our table back together. I'll start here by putting on the base so I can reattach my fence, and then get ready to do some test cuts. Once again, putting on the extremely heavy cast iron fence, sliding it just into place, and then throwing that one bolt right back through it, getting ready to go. And we're going to have to check here to make sure your fence is square. Now if your fence is all twisted just like your tops are, so it's kind of funky like that, you have to adjust screws all over the place to kind of get it to where it is. Same kind of thing, you'll adjust a little bit here, see how it is, adjust over there, see how it is. Tedious, but once it's perfect, so worth it. Next step is safety first. Keep this guard on all the time. This is a giant pizza cutter, so it's not worth having it off. Way dangerous. So here I just did a partial cut and then turned the machine off. And what I'm doing is just to check the heights between my blade and my outfeed table. So you should be able to go back and forth and push, and there'll be no rocking. And if you do that, you got to set it up nice. Then we'll finish up this cut and see how it looks. No rocking. I like it. I don't know why, but this is probably one of the most satisfying things for me, is putting on the paste wax so your wood slides nice over that cast iron top. Hopefully this video gave a better understanding how to tune up your joiner and get it right where you want it. If you have any questions, leave them below. I'll try to answer them the best I can, and we'll see you next time.